Welcome. Today in class I'm going to introduce the logo animation project. The logo animation is two different parts. One is a lower third animation for what would be a name tag. So if you're watching the news and someone has an interview and their little name comes up down at the bottom of the screen, that is called a lower third. So we're going to do an animated lower third for Weber State News. And then we're also going to do what's called a bumper or a transition, little bumper video or a transition video, using the different logos to create a wipe, a full screen wipe animation to do a transition from, like a news anchor to the person out in the field and the field story for the day. So, all right, let's start out by. I've got a new blank project here. I'm going to import a couple of files under, hold on, I gotta download this real quick. So if you go into Canvas, I'll just show you Canvas real quick, into your assignments, if you go to 3D logo bumper, the Weber logo animation.zip is the file you want to download. And these are your instructions. Okay, so remember those. You don't have to memorize them. I'm just going to put them over on my other screen. Now there they are in my downloads. At least it should be. Weber logo animation. I got a few different files here. We got our cat head EPS, claw EPS, the WSU logo EPS, and the color WSU logo color PSD. I think these logo assets are all more for Weber State Sports, but let's just pretend we're doing a sports segment. I'm going to import all of them. Just click open, and there they all are. Now the EPS files are vector-based files. But this logo right here, if I take a look at it, it actually has a white background. So while I could scale this up and have it retain its resolution, it does have a white background, which could create a problem for us. So I went ahead and opened it up in Photoshop and created a Photoshop file that's nice and big. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to start out just by creating a composition that is a standard definition composition, but I still am going to use the widescreen settings. So it's the same settings that you used on the Weber or on the Foresight logo animation. Only this assignment you need to use them as 3D objects. So let's create a new composition. What's the key command for that? Yep. Command N. And I've got my NTSC DV widescreen 23976, so that's the preset that I'm going to use. All those settings will be right except for this duration. The duration of this does not need to be any longer than 2 seconds. Okay, so you're going to put a lot of animation into this little 2-second video. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this 2 seconds right now. And we're good. If you want your logo animation to have more of a smoother look, or if it really is for TV broadcast, you might want to use 2997 instead. And the preset for that would be just the widescreen one. By default it's 2997. That's really the only difference between the two. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. I called my composition name Logo Bumper. And now I can start working with my timeline. I'm going to fit this up to 100% so that I can view my entire screen here. And then I want to start working with, I'm going to go ahead and just start working with this logo in the Photoshop file with the WSU logo. So I'm just going to bring that down into my timeline, and as you can see, it's already a pretty good size. So if I'm moving this really fast and I want to do a full screen kind of wipe thing, I can either swipe it across this way and it would do a full wipe, or if I'm animating it really fast and I have motion blur on, then I can have it start like really big and then go down to like a regular size pretty quickly, and you wouldn't notice that I'm scaling the object up past 100%. Because what happens if you scale it up past 100%? You start to see the pixels break apart, right? But if you're using vector objects, that doesn't happen. That doesn't have to happen, because underneath this panel, if I have the continuously rasterize option on this panel selected for a vector object, no matter how big I make it, it'll still be crystal clear. It'll still be crisp. But since the Photoshop is a pixel based, we'll start to see the pixels. So let me show you one thing about your viewer right now. Right now it looks like the background of this is black, right? But what I want to do is create a transition piece which uses alpha. And that, to show my alpha, I need to check on this little checkerboard down here. Anything that's this checkerboard, that's see-through. So if I were to export this video the way it is right now and then put it onto an interview, this logo would come and just like cover up everybody's faces. So if I want to have my logo down at the bottom of the screen, have just like a little watermark down here like the television stations do. You're watching your latest show on network television, and down right about here you have a little watermark of the televisions, the Sci-Fi Channel or AMC or whatever. They would render it out like this on alpha with the alpha turned on, and then when they put it in, it doesn't show up with a black background and cover everything up. It just becomes see-through. Okay, so we need to remember that when the transition piece that we want will, even if it doesn't start full screen, at some point you need your graphic to be able to create a wipe from being all checkered to being with a black background or some other colored background that you want to use. All right?
What did you do to make it all checkered?
To make it look checkered, you click on this little checker box icon. Okay, so that tells me what's see-through. If at any point after I want my video to cover, or my graphic to cover the video, to be my transition to this piece, if I am seeing checker in the background, then your newscasters are going to be in your graphic, because it didn't ever cover up the whole screen. So let me just do something really quick. We actually, this assignment needs to use 3D layers. Okay, so right now I'm gonna go to my scale and I'm gonna put this back at 100%, and I'm gonna make this layer 3D. Now, in order to create perspective and make this object move around and make it look like it's zooming past the camera, what do I need to do? Yeah, I need to add keyframes. I need to add some position keyframes so that it can zoom around and stuff. But when you're working in 3D, what are some objects that you're going to need? Speak up.
The XYZ.
Yeah, the XYZ properties are right here. So, if I move my Z panel, it goes that way. If I move X, it goes that way. So I've already got my XYZ there because I made it a 3D layer. We need a camera. Yeah, so let's create a new camera. New. So if I go down into the negative space in my timeline, I want to right click, select new, and it's down off your screen, but select camera. And then, like I said before, I like to use 50mm a lot. I could make it wider, maybe 28. So maybe for this one I will use 28. Because if I use, let me show you the difference between a 50mm and a 28mm. With the 50mm camera, or actually, okay, with the 28mm camera, it's a wide angle lens. So if I start rotating this on the x-axis, look at how extreme that perspective becomes. Okay. If I do that with the 50mm camera and I start that rotation, look at how it's a little bit less extreme. Now watch as I toggle the other camera on. See how much more extreme the perspective is with the wider angle lens? So that's the difference between when you rotate an object around. So that's why I want to keep the wide angle lens, the 28. If I did it at like 18, it would be even more extreme than that. It would be like a fisheye thing. Be crazy angles. So I'm going to just reset my rotation back to 0. Now let me show you what I mean. If I want to start and have this wildcat head kind of take up the entire screen, maybe I could start the position right here. So it's just out of view of the camera. Alright. Set a keyframe for my position. So turn on keyframes by activating the stopwatch. Then maybe just go forward 4 frames. So really, really fast move. And I'm just going to move this on in front. Then go forward to like 1 second. Move the Z position back to where it settles on the screen right there. Now let's watch what happens. Okay, did my checkerboard go away? Right now we see people's faces, they're talking, they're saying, now let's go to so-and-so who's on location, and then you play the graphic to wipe away to the person on location, but that doesn't actually go away. I think it's still there. So let's go to the very frame where it is, where this wildcat head is covering the entire frame, and make a new solid. I'm going to make this solid. I'm going to make it purple, but I'm going to make a really deep purple. And then click OK. What's wrong with this picture here?
You can move the solid down.
Yeah, the solid, by default, when you create a new layer, it like puts it on the top, even though this is going to be my background. Alright, now let's look at it. Right now, it's purple, and it's still purple. So what do we need to do to this? We want it to be all checkerboard, and then we want it to wipe to all purple, or green or blue or whatever your background is.
The opacity onto the solid.
Can we set the solid to have endpoint?
Both of you are correct. Diane has the easier option, which is to set a new endpoint for the solid layer. So let's move the playhead to where the tiger, I keep wanting to call it a tiger, where the wildcat's covering the entire frame. That one will work. What do you guys remember the key command to change the endpoint of this layer?
Is it home? Oh, I don't know.
Say what?
Bracket.
It's the bracket. Which bracket?
The right.
The right one.
It's the left one. Because it'll hug the left side, it holds the left side. Let's just do the bracket. Okay, left bracket. Now let me take a look at it. All checkers. Now it's got purple in the background. Okay, so that'll be a transitional wipe. And as you can see, it's only 4 frames long. It's like 1, 2, 3. It's like 3 frames long. Okay, that's all the longer it needs to be. It can be a little longer than that, but really all you want to do is do this quick motion where your graphics take up the entire screen, wipe away what's on the screen to be the graphics, and then do a full wipe away again. So we've got settles into place, and then maybe what I'll do is I'm going to go into my 3D view here and do 2 views, and then show you maybe the second one I'm going to create a new keyframe for this thing to start leaving right, 12 frames before the end. Okay, so we're at 1.5 seconds right now. And then by 2 seconds, I want this background to be checkered again. So I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to have this Wildcat come this way, but all in one swoop, I'm going to have it go right off the screen. Now this is a little more advanced, but check out what's going on here. I'm looking at this from the top. This line from here to here is the Wildcat going off the screen. But it's never like covering up the screen. So now what I can do is I can say, well, I want to at least maybe have it be on this frame. So I can go and Bezier my position settings. So if you look at my keyframe right here, this little guy right here, and then go in a little bit, there's a slightly smaller square on that line that's a handle, and I can bend the path that Wildcat head will take. And if I bend it back this way, watch what happens. Now I can also bend this other one. So now instead of going straight off this way and never covering up the field of view of the camera, it's now going to zoom to the side and wipe away this way. So it's going to go whoosh past the camera, hopefully. Okay, so now check it out. This frame right here, it's covering the whole frame. What do I want to do with my solid here on this frame?
Click the right bracket.
Yeah, but I don't want to just click the right bracket. I actually want to trim the right side of it to end there. Because if I hit the right bracket, then it'll slide the whole thing this way. It'll go, and then I'll screw up the beginning. So the key command, remember, is Alt right bracket, and that'll trim it. So let me just take a look at, do a little preview. Okay, so that's it. That's the basics of it. There are other things we need to add. A very short video that acts as a transition segue, maximum 2 seconds. So we want different things. We want to use the text Weber State News in the 3D text layer as a 3D text layer. We want to use solids, masks, shapes, gradients, filters, other principles learned in other chapters in order to make this work. Okay, so right now it's pretty simple. What if I wanted to add a little bit of motion to this camera? I could do that. We might actually have to change the position keyframes of our Wildcat head here. But let's say I want to do a little bit with the camera. I'm going to start by just doing some keyframes for the position and the anchor point on the camera. So position, anchor point. And I'm going to have just add those keyframes. And what that does, now I've got my camera. Where's my camera? Oh, I didn't have it turned on. Well, this is going to be even more extreme. Wow. Wow. Okay, we can tweak those positions later. In fact, I'm going to just do this now. I want that Weber State Wildcat to be a little bit closer to the camera. It's kind of small right now. Maybe it's not so bad. I don't know. What's your preference? Should we leave it that small or should we make it a little bigger? We don't want it to go outside of title safe, right?
Bigger.
Make it a little bigger, but not bigger than title safe. So let me bring up my title safe margins. I'm going to click on this here. And then there's two different ways I can do this. I can either, well, there's several. I can bring the object closer to the camera. I can have the camera start closer to the object, or I can scale the object up. Which do you vote? Okay, I'm going to pick for me. I'm going to bring the camera closer to the object. So with my top view, in my 3D viewer here, my top view, if I grab the Z option on the camera, they're really, really small here. Let me zoom in on it a little bit. If I grab the Z handle and drag it this way, I'm going to move it closer to the object. I don't want it to go outside of title safe, so right there is good. Okay. Now what I want to do is, as this animation is happening, I want to have the camera kind of do a little swing around the object a little bit. So it's kind of like Sports Center, goes around the object. So I'm going to just move the position of the camera, not the point of interest, because if I move the camera in this viewer, it'll move the point of interest and the camera position together. So this time I have to go down to the actual position settings, and I'm going to move the camera to the side this way. Now what's that doing to the perspective on the logo? Yeah, it's making it look the wrong way. What could I do to make sure that the camera is always going to be looking at the logo? If I click on the logo, my logo is right here. If I select the camera, the point of interest is right here.
Can you parent it?
You don't really need to parent it. What's it looking at right now?
To the right side.
Yeah, it's looking right here. The camera, this little dot right here, that's what the camera is going to be pointed at no matter where you move the position, unless you move it right with these handles. So if I move the camera over to this side, then right now it's looking off. If I keep drawing this line off sideways, it's looking off to the side of the logo. I'm going to just push this point of interest back until it meets up with the logo. Okay. Now, if I move the camera to either side, that logo is always going to be in the center. But it'll change its perspective based on which way the camera is. So I want the camera to go from here to here. Cool? So let's take this keyframe. Now that the reason why I'm doing this here at the 1 second mark is because that's where the logo is settled into its place. If I go forward to this next keyframe where the logo starts to leave, I can set my other keyframe and maybe just move the camera this side. If you wanted to make it look really like you're doing a round dolly, you can actually bend that position around also, so it's doing a curve. Okay. Now if I can just take these keyframes and move it to the one end and the other end so that the camera is always going to be moving. Okay. So let's set some new keyframes for the position of our Wildcat coming in. Check it out right now. The logo is like way off behind the camera. This little dot right here. Let me get closer here. I'm just too used to seeing these small. If I go back, hit the home key, do the beginning, my camera is right here, pointed this way, and my logo is way back here. But I want the logo to pass in front of the camera right here. So I just need to move this out in front of the camera a little bit more. So for this keyframe, I'm just going to grab the Z settings, go here to where it's big enough to cover the screen, but then move it off to the side. Okay, and then for the second keyframe that happens at 4 frames, see how far back it is? It's like behind the camera now. I want to move it out in front of the new position of the camera. Let me see if that'll do a full screen wipe. Almost. Let me go back to this keyframe, make sure the playhead is on this keyframe. Bring it closer. Now let's look at it. Okay, check this out. It's never fully covering Let me go back to my one view so you can see this a little bit better. It's never fully covering all of the checkerboard behind it. So you check this out. There's checkerboard here, and now there's checkerboard on the left. Is that a problem? It's not, because this is the last frame where we want to see them. This frame, we want to see the background. So if we start the background on this frame, it's still going to work. Okay? So even though the logo never actually covers the entire screen, I have one frame, like a one frame place where I can make it work. Alright, I got a little bit of a problem here with the speed of my keyframes. Maybe I'll just have this go faster. Whoa, okay, now the logo's going way off in the wrong direction that way. Okay, so let's just change the settings. Yeah, I said meow. Meow. Let's make it go rawr. Alright, 2 views. Man, my humor is lame. Alright, so let's just take this last keyframe and let's put it, see the camera's right here? Let's grab this Wildcat logo, move it this way, out in front here, just off to the side. Let's see if that works. Okay, this is about where I want this thing to come over here. Let's drag this line. Just a little bit farther. Okay, so that's the frame right there that I want this to end. The background layer needs to end right there. I've done this a few times in front of the class, and I'm trying to do something different this time. This is probably my least favorite time I've done this. Alright. Now let's make the purple layer 3D also. Does that mess me up? Check that out. One secret to solid layers is they're like little vector objects that are super easy to generate. So, and since we want it to be in the background, let's go back to here where the camera is pretty squared up and just take the Z settings and put it way off in the distance. And then if you take your scale settings, you can make it way bigger. That way, as the camera moves around, it's always there. That's still not working, I don't think. Let me take a look at this from the top. So I'm going to go to 2 views. Oh, that solid layer still is way out in front. It's got to go back lots farther. It's got to go back behind. It's got to go back behind the Weber State logo. Okay, make it even bigger. Okay, right now you can see these outlines moving as I do this, but you can't tell that solid has any depth to it, can you? What would we need to do to it? What would give it some luster? A light, maybe? Let's throw a light on this scene and see what happens. So let's go down into the negative space in my timeline panel. I'm going to select all these and hit U to hide all those keyframes. Right click, new, light. Let's make a spotlight because we want to point it in a certain direction. Intensity's good. Let's have it cast shadows because I want our logo to cast a shadow on the background. Shadow darkness, let's make that like 30%. Doesn't have to be that dark. And then do a diffusion on the shadow of like 15. It's arbitrary. I don't know. I don't know what it'll look like. I can change it if I need to. And now click OK. Suddenly we have a light. And check it out. The fall off, let me take off the fall off of the feather of that light is now creating some shape to the background. And check out what it's doing to our logo as the logo is passing through it. Right now there's no drop shadow behind the logo because I don't think casting shadows is turned on. So how do we turn on casting shadows for the logo? How do we make sure? If you twirl down this arrow and then go to material options and twirl down that arrow, then you have all of your options for what 3D interaction it can do. So right now on cast shadows it's turned off, so let's turn that on. Then we need to make sure that the bottom layer is accepting shadows. So let's go down to that one, twirl that one down, twirl down material options, accept shadows is turned on. So is it actually accepting a shadow? I don't know because it's still kind of dark. Let's create a new solid. And I'm going to make this one white just to kind of maybe a lighter purple, just to test this one out. I'm going to delete that one out of there and then go up to my solids in my project panel. See my light purple and deep purple. So if I go down here and click on the deep purple layer in my timeline panel, then grab the medium purple, hold down Alt and just drop it in the timeline panel. You don't have to drop it right on the layer because it's already selected. So if you just let it go in there with Alt selected, it will replace that layer with the one you dropped down. So yeah, it's accepting the shadow. Here's the question though. Do we like it better with the dark purple or light purple?
I like the dark.
You like the light one? There's not a wrong answer to that question. Either way is fine. I kind of like the dark one. Okay, you can see the shadow there a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now what's the one last thing I'd probably do to this? Motion blur. Add some easing to my keyframes, maybe. So I turned on the motion blur on the timeline, and then I'm going to select all these layers, hit U to uncut, to hit it a couple times to get rid of all the keyframes. Then I need to turn motion blur on for the layers that I want to be blurry, and in this case, the only one that's really going to matter on is the logo that's flying by. So I'm going to turn it on for that one. Okay, one last thing we need to add to this is, and I'm not going to do this for you, but you need to have a 3D text that incorporates it with the Weber State logo. So do Weber State news or breaking news story or special report. Add some text to this scene and find another creative way to fly the text in and have the text in a 3D layer out in front of the Weber State logo. Okay? Maybe I'll do it real quick. I'm going to do it real quick right now. Well, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to talk you through it. I'm just going to do it real fast to show you what I mean. Okay?
Talk really fast while you're doing it.
All right. I'm going to make a new text layer. Breaking story. Breaking news. I'm going to make this all caps. Right now it's white. So make this a 3D layer. Put it out here. Maybe that's a little too close. I want it to be out in front, but not way out in front. Make it bigger. Add some position keyframe. Slide this keyframe over a little bit. Slide it over this way. Maybe I want that to come in from the other side. That was ugly. Okay, and then as soon as that covers that up, I want to just have that end right about there. Or just have it kind of keep moving off that way. I'll just have it keep moving off. So I add a keyframe to my position here. Make sure it's gone by there. See ya. Okay. Breaking news. Okay, that's not very legible. Why do I have to do this crap in front of people? Alright, I'm going to just drop this back a little more. Drop it down. Okay, here's a solution. I could have this layer. Let me add some keyframes to this WSU logo. And the keyframe I want will be scale. Make it get a little bit smaller. I'm just going to change my anchor point a little bit. Sure, it'll be fine. There. That's a little better. Let me make sure it's going to do its job when it leaves. It doesn't do its job when it leaves, so I need to change some scale again. So right here, scale, get back up to 100% right here. Do its little cover-up thing. Okay, so that's what I mean by having some text in there too. So when I place this over video, I need to be able to see, still kind of out in front there a little too much. Anyway, hopefully you get the gist. Hopefully you get the idea. All right. And I would add some other things like, you know, if you're a fan of lens flares, you know, make some lens flares pop up, you know.
Just whatever we like.
Yeah, lens flares can be problematic though, because the one that comes with After Effects needs to be rendered on a black layer, which once you render it out won't become invisible if there's nothing underneath it. So it kind of doesn't really work very well unless you're using masks and things. Could add a little bit of shininess to my deep purple layer. Go to my material options. Maybe change a couple of things to make it a little bit more seeable. That looks pretty good, I guess. I'm going to add some easing to the position of this. Just uncover those keyframes. Ease this in. And then go to these and ease them out. Oops.
What did you do to change the position, like how it goes, like it swings, like you have the camera like that right there? What
This
did you-
thing?
Yeah, that part. What,
I just that was when I was changing the position of the camera to just
oh, it was just the
it's still looking here. I don't change the point of interest ever.
Uh-huh.
Point of interest for the camera is the same as anchor point. So A for point of interest and then P for position.
And you just changed the position of the
And all I did was change the position of the camera to go to kind of rotate around, to orbit around the anchor point. So, yeah, all right. So that one's really simple. That's like the simplest example I've given of this. There's different things you can do. So it just needs to make sure, and you know, different objects can be coming in at different times so long as, and you can use a mask on the background layer so that if you're never getting that one frame separation in there, you would have to use a mask and animate the mask so that it wipes in the background and covers up the footage that you're replacing it with. Okay, so there is the 3D logo bumper portion.